You're tuned in to Steve Megatron on Altered Geek.
Hello and welcome to Altered Geek. I'm your host, Steve Megatron Phillips, and in this episode of the podcast, gonna drop a couple of different things. This is kind of gonna be an update slash feedback episode, and it's more so gonna be a soapbox and opinions thing, and it's going to kind of go all over the place. So if this isn't your cup of tea, I'm sorry. Feel free to tune out of this episode. I need to vent. So essentially, some of you may have heard, I am in the process of looking for new employment. Not by my own choosing, but nevertheless, I have no ill will against the company that I previously worked for. They were a great company and great to me. They were very helpful in my time of need, and it was amicable parting. However, not my choice, like I said. But regardless, it's I still have respect for all the people that work there at that company. So that being said, I can talk about whatever I want now, politics included, although I probably won't. I don't really want to get down that rat hole, because we know how that goes. Look at Roseanne. With that whole program of, stick, foot, and mouth rewrite, not included anymore. So... So yeah, anyways, I've got like this giant kind of soapbox of just stuff that's kind of on my mind. Among it is like listener feedback. I've got whether it's over Facebook, Twitter, the .com, just some various things I'm going to cover there, and then some kind of geeky news pertaining to movies and technology and some stuff like that. So stay tuned, because you might be intrigued. And if you need someone who's got podcasting experience or know of a employment avenue for me, please let me know. If it has to do with podcasting, radio, television, whatever, and pays decent, and it's something you think I'd be good at, please let me know. Send it to me at SCP21 on Twitter, or Steve at geekcastradio.com. Let me know. Because, again, this is a labor of love, and it doesn't pay the bills. So, anyways, that aside, getting into the feedback. There was a fun, interesting question, and we have guest writers on the website. So some of these particular questions or topics or one-off articles are written by them, and so... they've been asking some pretty interesting questions. One of them was being, how much bandwidth is your family really using? Is there a problem somewhere? And so it kind of goes through this list, and Mike Powers says like 60 days of usage for his household, just his wife and him. All streaming all the time, Netflix, Hulu, and YouTube in 4K when possible. No cable service. Is usually lower than his average, is 100 to 200 gigs higher when Netflix releases new 4K shows. So like he'll hit about 450 gigs of download speeds. And myself, not so much. Mine is kind of in there between like the 118 mark per month for terms of bandwidth. So, and then Doug Abel kind of jumps in there with his usage on gaming and the PS4, Skype chat sessions with his dad, wife, streaming, Freeform, Hulu, Netflix, etc. 12 hours a day on the weekends and 3 to 4 hours every night. He says, now we don't have Netflix in 4K because I don't have a 4K TV. I figure why pay more when I can't see it. I get a terabyte usage a month, and I only get close once when we had guest access open and bought a PS4 where I bought several 30 gig titles online. That 1 month, we hit 750 gigabytes. Now, this is what my average looks like. So, he kind of shows that it's kind of averaging between like 175 and like 225. which is decent. I mean, we all pretty much get the 1 terabyte plan. Overall, some people have unlimited, some people can afford unlimited. So, but I thought it was kind of an interesting choice how we used to survive on 56K modems back in the day, and now we have this high-speed internet. We can download full movies, we can download full games, we can play online, we can stream television, and it's all these like high-quality definition visuals, and we use this massive amount of bandwidth, which doesn't seem like a lot, but it kind of increases year by year based on the type of content and the more we consume. So it's kind of interesting to kind of look at that and see kind of what's going through the heads of people when they're doing all the streaming. And one of our podcasting friends, Hank Davis, he says, please don't tell me you're an OG podcaster if you've never had to search how do I escape ampersands in XML. The struggle was real, hand-coded feed. I remember those days. It was not fun. Especially when Mike would type some particular title. He would have like a combination of things in a title, and he would end it with "and" the ampersand for the "and" symbol in the titles. And when you're hand coding it, like when it's different when it's translated from like WordPress or one of these podcasting sources, but when you're on when you're hand coding it in either like an HTML editor or Notepad or something, and you're trying to configure the XML, the ampersand just will completely brick the RSS feed. It will destroy the RSS feed. And then you're sitting there like, I don't have a clue where the problem is. And then eventually I figured it out. I didn't even Google it because I don't even think at the time when I was doing that I used Google. I was like still using like Yahoo or something to that extent. And I was just starting to come around to Google at that point. But I didn't even Google it. I think I was looking and finally figured out how to do it. And then removed it and put the "and" in there, and it showed up, and I was like, holy crap. And so I told Mike, I'm like, you have to stop putting ampersands in because I'm not fixing it. And which used to drive him crazy because it was like along the same lines of having to have like a specific date for like an anniversary date for a show or something like that. So Hank replies to me when I said, yeah, I forgot about those days and having to deal with that, and it would kill titles and brick the whole RSS feed. He says, it took me so long to understand why it was breaking my feed. I remember being so frustrated. Ampersand, AMP, colon. You know, it's funny when you have to like remember the HTML code to actually generate that. But we don't have to do that anymore, which is kind of exciting because I can put my struggle into other issues instead of fixing and generating an RSS feed. So I really love not having to deal with that, although I do know how to fix them if possible. So yeah, it's another one of those fun things there, and apologize for that. But we have also the whole thing with having to go to HTTPS and registered RSS feeds, which I'm waiting for. I have like a couple more pages on the new website to get done, and then I have to import all of the content that's not there right now, which isn't very much. I kind of keep it up to date every week. But I also have to, I'm going the route of making the site have a subscription fee, but it's not mandatory. Like you can still browse the site fine, it'll still work. But what the goal is I'm going to put ads on it, more than what's on this one. Not a lot, and they're not going to be like junk ads where they bring up spyware and viral and spam and all this other crap, because I detest that type of marketing. It's for all geek-related material. However, I am going to allow bypassing that by the subscription fee where you can essentially pay to make them go away. And we're going to have other exclusive content behind the paywall. But everything that is out now and anything like any shows, unless it's specifically mentioned, are going to be free. Like we're not going to do that whole garbage game that everybody else does with, oh, pay to read the comments, or pay to read the article, or listen to the podcast, or view the video show, like some resources that I know of. And it's going to also allow for people to sign up for the newsletter, to keep kind of involved in the website. I'm trying to get the social share aspect, or the social login built in, so people don't necessarily have to log in the old-fashioned way. And that way they don't have to go through the whole sign-up process of, I personally hate doing that. I love the social login. However, I don't trust Facebook with a 2-foot pole. So I've got it set up so you can use like Tumblr, Facebook, Twitter, Google. There's a few other ones, Reddit, and some other sources like that. So it's going to be very open and still very friendly. That's what I'm looking forward to with the site. Plus, I'm going to enable HTTPS SSL on the new site. And then it's completely GDPR friendly. It's a lot more ability for interaction and commenting, or submitting certain issues with the site, or submitting press tips, or things like that, because the emails get inundated with a lot of junk, and this will therefore save it all on the website. And myself or some of the others on Geekcast Radio can access it and kind of publish it, or pass it around and kind of do what we got to do. But it will have it all in the dashboard first, which will be nice. I know a lot of technical jargon and stuff that nobody probably cares about behind the scenes, but I find it interesting because a lot of what I'm doing to this new site is stuff that we've discussed for about 5 years. And it's disgusting to me because I'm just now figuring out how to do it. And now that I'm unemployed, I have even more reason to sit here and actually get this thing done. Because I've been working on it for about a month and a half now, and going on 2 months. And it's pretty much done. I just have to finish configuring the shows that are active at this point, and then get a glitch with the ads fixed, and then everything's pretty much ready to go. All I have to do is switch it over. The comments, I also figured that out. There was like some glitch in the old site because every time I've done something and reinvented the site, it duplicated and re-imported all of the comments. So like every comment that's in the site or was in the site, it duplicated. So instead of like, say for example, we had, like 12,000 comments total, it doubled it and we had 24,000. And so I was like, this can't be right. And then I started looking through old posts and I'm like, it's not right. There's comments that are doubled in here. And so I found this script that somebody wrote like 6 years ago that removes the duplicates. And I tried it on the test site first, and I was like, okay, it actually does what it says, but I had to edit and modify it heavily because it didn't work. It was a broken piece of software, so I had to fix it, and then it worked, and I was like, yes, plugin achieved, and I've got that saved now. So that's it. All I got on that aspect, because I don't want to bore the crap out of anybody anymore. But there was another fun thing that I reposted on Geekcast Radio's Facebook, and it was a video posted by Unilad originally, and it was they were doing a presentation on countries and information about them, and their rulers and their armies and all this. And people may have seen this clip, but this particular student gave a presentation in class on the fictional country of Wakanda. And his teacher legitimately thinks it's legit and real. And she's like, oh, okay. Like, just, like, flabbergasted at this whole thing. And he said, explains, like, all the backstory of, like, T'Challa and, like, his family. And, like, this is what he's trying to do. And you didn't hear about this. And, the Sokovia Accords and blah, 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 blah. And, like, the teacher's just... She's like, where have I been this whole time? I'm living under a rock. It's very entertaining. And Desiree mentions how, the trail of a lifetime. She did catch on slightly with all those kids laughing, but wow, even if you've never seen the movie, come on, a world-class or world leader assassinated at a UN building would be headline news. Which you would think so. However, in today's age, it's just kind of crazy. But I still thought it was kind of interesting and funny, and I was actually genuinely laughing at this clip because I'm like, how is this teacher not knowing this? And they're supposed to be a teacher of like countries, like a geography, like country, teacher, and so the fact that they couldn't even mention where this was on the map, like he kind of vaguely pointed it out, and she's like, oh, okay, blah blah blah, like just it was just entertaining, and he had this really chintzy PowerPoint, as like lazy and dumb as possible. Like I hate these type of PowerPoints when people do them like that, but that's because I'm a perfectionist with them. They have to look professional, which is why in college I always had to do them if I wanted them done right. And so yeah, there was that. And so anyways, we had a couple other things pop up. One of the articles was about 5 great ways to enhance the gaming experience. And this was written by one of our writers, and said that, sure, all you need are the 4 main components, a game, a platform, a monitor, a controller, but sometimes the essentials aren't, bare essentials aren't good enough. And so they said, something to start with that's simple and is sound, like stereo speakers, which I kind of agree with that. When I started playing my Xbox 360, we used to have some surround speakers, and we actually used to have one of those chairs, the rocker chair type things, gaming chairs, that sit on the floor, and it had speakers built into the side, and you could plug it into the device. I would plug that into my TV, and so I would get a little bit of surround sound behind me and as well as in front of me, and it was awesome till the chair broke. But I kind of didn't care after that, and I would just turn the volume real low, so it didn't really bother me. Another thing they kind of mentioned was like a digital projector, so instead of like a TV. However, you won't get the quality that you're really looking for that you could get from like a plasma television or an LED. And Mike Powers actually mentions how he says, pass on the digital projector for gaming. Give me FALD or OLED any day, which FALD is a full array variable, like full array LED, which is more of a common backlit, edge-lit LED system, which I wasn't really familiar with that prior to looking it up when I read his comment, because I'm so out of the TV realm. Like the last TV I have is a 50-inch plasma, so I have no idea what came out after that, because they had LED TVs and LCD TVs when we were looking at plasmas the first time when we got our 42-inch plasma, like over a decade ago. And that crapped out about 6 years into it, and we've had this 50-inch plasma for about 5 years now, and maybe a little less, maybe about 4, but still, it was a better TV for what we needed. And although the glare was terrible on it, it's not so bad when it's downstairs because we don't have any light coming barely down there. But I always enjoyed the plasma, but the FALD sounds pretty interesting, as well as the OLED, which is organic light emitting diode. So I don't know. I'm kind of in favor of using a TV, or a really large TV at that, rather than a projector. But it's an interesting concept. So like if you're gonna play outside, maybe, and have like a tournament type thing, I could see it being kind of a cool option. But I don't see it working for like just a generalized play, unless you just really like projectors. Another option is VR. Monitors and projectors are not the only way to go. And with virtual reality coming, pretty regularly on every device, whether it's mobile, console, and PC, you can kind of enter yourself into these technologies, kind of like the Star Trek Bridge Commander. I would love to play it, but I don't really want to invest in the VR. Plus, it's still, the technology is still lacking. Like when I can go in and it's like a holodeck, and I can interact with everything and I don't have to put on a headset, that's when it's ready to be for my consumption, which it probably will never be as long as I live. If it does, awesome. I would love to go back and like create things and, you know, scan in pictures and make people again and that are no longer here, which would be kind of interesting and morbid at the same time. They say having a dedicated gaming chair or for when you're playing a game, a comfort chair. I have a nice office chair. Cost me like $80. I'm good with it. It's leather. It's comfortable. I put a laptop in it in the bag on the seat so the cats don't sit on it, claw it up. It's kept it rather nice for the last 6 months I've had it. I would not go back on that idea. My other two office chairs, the one is all like, it gets hairy constantly, and the other one, my cat tore up the entire center part of the seat just from residual jumping on it. So I enjoy the fact that I don't have an animal on my chair unless I allow it. But I like my gaming chair. It's very comfortable. I could sit here all day. As a matter of fact, I was sitting here all day, every day, while I worked from home and when I would be online recording the shows and playing games late at night. So another thing they said is a cooler table. So like a thing for hunger and you know, food and, you know, basically something meant for the patio. I do another method. And my method is a little bit different. When no matter where I've worked, or like if it's a desk job or if it's here at home, I use my desk. Honestly, like I have a drawer. I have a little bit of space in the front. I put my snacks in it, my goodies. If I got pop, I put it next to the tower, or I put it in the desk drawer, and then I call it good. I really don't, honestly, like if I put it low enough to the floor in my desk drawer, because I'm in the basement of the house, the floor is not insulated. It's actually concrete underneath the really thin, like centimeter, like I don't know, like half a centimeter thick tile. And so the floor stays freezing cold. So if I put my pop right on the floor and I let it sit there, it ends up like almost refrigerated level. Not quite that cold, but it's not warm like room temperature like when you get it at the store. So I can bear it, and it's decent. So that's kind of the way I go about it. Another funny thing I saw on Facebook was the Audacity to Podcast posts. And I think this is kind of true because people are nitpicking the crap out of Google for their podcast app, which it's simple, but you got to remember Google is kind of the one that can't seem to figure out anything on their own when it comes to new processes. Apple seems to innovate something and then everybody else follows suit or invents their own version. Which is the only thing I can give Apple is the fact that they come up with stuff. If it isn't Microsoft that comes up with it first, because Microsoft had the idea of the tablet and before, and the MP3 player, well, not the MP3 player, but the tablet at least beforehand, and it kind of flopped, and then Apple reinvented it, and it took off. But he says that podcast power listeners who criticize Google Podcasts for being too simple miss the point. It's like a wine connoisseur criticizing a child for drinking Capri Sun, which I thought was hilarious. It's it's good enough for the average person, more so because they really didn't have any representation on Android, which is 90% of the problem. Is that they didn't have any representation. I'm not one that downloads any of these apps. Like I'd prefer just to stream them from one of the locations if possible, or just download the stupid file. But I'll be interested to see what Google does with their new podcast app. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with it anyway. Like it's kind of one of those things I have hopes of what they'll do. And I hope that they enhance their back end for a lot of this stuff, because a lot of it's just utter garbage from Google. And really, to be honest, most of the services are terrible with their back end for stats and stuff, unless it's like a Libsyn or an Omni or a Spreaker or something like that. It's really hard to have a good app unless you're using those things. So yeah. So anyways, those are some of my Facebook comments. Now when I go to Twitter, starting off my conversation was about PC upgrades. And the sad thing is before all of my job situation took place, I was starting to piece out and price out like a possible new system, because I didn't realize that my system is as old as it is, because I have a Pentium i3 core 4th generation. They're on 8th right now. 4th generation, 12 gig of RAM, 2 gigabyte GeForce DDR3 system, and yeah, I mean, it still does everything I want it to do, but I was looking at what was it, Newegg? Yeah, Newegg. I was looking at their website, and I had logged in. I was kind of mostly just for fun. I have a lot of these like little wish list things, and I'm kind of glad for my birthday, which just passed on the 18th, my wife was going to buy me a 32-inch TV to be a computer screen, and I was like pretty much all for it. And then I was like, we should probably save the money. Like, I felt bad just spending it, and it was kind of a good thing I didn't spend it, but I felt terrible, and so I didn't do it. And it turned out to be a good thing, because I still have a working monitor. It's not like it's a huge deal. I have a 27-inch and a 19-inch monitor. So anyways, I was piecing together pieces of what I would get. And it's just because I'm trying to stick on the low end of some things and some things not so much. So anyways, I put together, I was like, okay, Seagate 3 terabyte SATA hard drive to put in it. And I was like, okay, $83, not really that bad. EVGA 750 watt modular, fully modular power supply. Compact one, so it'll fit in a baby AT case or a micro ATX case. $89. Okay, whoop-de-doo. Gigabyte GeForce, and I love the Gigabyte brand, which is why I always gravitate towards it, but it's also the cheaper brand, so it works out for me. Gigabyte GeForce GTX 1050 Ti DirectX 12, 4 gigabyte 128-bit GDDR5 video card, $189. I was like, okay, that's good, because it's like double of what I got now, and it'll process more. And then Gigabyte DS3H LGA 1151 300 series Intel H370 HDMI SATA 6 gigabyte and micro ATX Intel motherboard, and it has a bunch of USB 3.1, Type C, smart fans, dual BIOS, like all this, like a ton of. I think it's got like 8 USB ports on it. It's like $89. And then I've got like the thermal paste for the processor, the cooler fan, $29 for that. Corsair, 16 gigs of RAM, $179. And then I've got the Intel processor, which is the most expensive thing because it's an 8th generation Pentium Core i7 8700K Coffee Lake 6-core 3.7 gigahertz, $349. That's the most expensive piece of the whole machine. So it's $1,000. And I was like, that would be awesome, but I can't afford that right now. So eventually, like if I ever figure out how to make enough to get something like that in the future, I'll probably buy it all, at least incrementally for most of it. Because it seems to be the way I do is I gravitate towards things like that. But yeah. So, anyways, that's kind of the funny thing that I mentioned about it. And we were also going to sign up for new cell phones like a week or two ago. And Sprint had this awesome deal for like $15-20 a month. You can get a cell phone, unlimited everything within reason. Now, granted, that special and that particular plan are now missing from their website because it was a part of that special. But you had to buy a device, and I wanted the Google Pixel XL 2, and they didn't have it. And I think that was kind of an omen that I was not meant to get a new phone. And again, it kind of plays into this whole thing of like, I'm glad I didn't spend it. So it's kind of like this weird situation for me. Like I'm kind of taken aback on some of the stuff that's been going on. Just overall, it's been a weird freaking week and long, to be honest. But regardless, there have been some pluses, namely with like Star Trek stuff, that they're gonna have 4 or 5 new series now that Kurtzman is in charge of the boat. And what that means is that we could be seeing a Captain Picard reprisal, possibly. Which, don't get me wrong, I would love it, but is it the show we deserve or need? I still would take it, but what's going to be coming, like, these are the 4 projected series now that Alex Kurtzman has entered a 5-year deal with CBS All Access to oversee a variety of Star Trek series and miniseries, which is something Abrams tried to do 9 years ago or 10 years ago, and they were like, no, we're good. We don't really want to move in that direction, so bite me. So anyways, Kurtzman's kind of carrying on that torch. So they want to do a Star Trek Starfleet Academy show, which we kind of joked about, Dodd and I, a few years ago when we heard about new series from creators Stephanie Savage and Josh Schwartz, creators of Gossip Girl and Marvel's Runaways, which it won't be a show I'll watch, but I get the reasoning for doing it, just because it's kind of gravitating towards that other dynamic. I mean, they're going to essentially pull like a CW DC and like a Netflix Marvel thing and try and get all these people on board that weren't previously a Trekkie. So, I mean, I guess it's a good entry point for the teens that are out now, whatever generation they're called. So then there's a limited series based around the character of Khan, which is the one that Nicholas Meyer was kind of foreshadowing. From Ricardo Montalban's version from Space Seed and Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. So this would be presumably about his exile under the orders of Captain Kirk. So it would be during the time that he was stranded, after he was stranded by the Enterprise on CT Alpha 5. And when the planet thing was destroyed and they technically were thought to be CD Alpha 4 before Chekhov and Captain Terrell found them in The Wrath of Khan. So it'll be interesting to see how they play that out. There's a limited series under wraps whose plot are being kept like very tight-lipped. And it's a limited series just like the Khan one. Which I think it's cool that they're doing limited series, meaning that there's going to be no continuation. It's going to be a one-off, which I think works really well rather than doing a bunch of films. I think doing a one-off series is much cleaner and in the direction, and especially if they're wanting to recapture a lot of these prime timeline people like myself, or just covering an entirely, I think what they're going to do is, I think with this Star Trek thing of covering characters that have been done through these limited series, I think they're going to hit the nail on the head where Star Wars failed with their live-action film of Solo. And I think it's going to be a good thing for Trek. But, Star Wars seems to have this thing with their animated series that they're just superb, and then their episodes are kind of subpar, but they're depending on the film. I think that Trek, their films have gotten to be subpar at this point, and Discovery, I'm still on the fence. I mean, I like it, but it's not the Trek that I'm in favor of, at least not yet, until I see what they do in season 2. I won't quit watching it, but it's still going to be a difficult series to watch. But I think that they're hinting, and they've asked Patrick Stewart that he was going to brush up on his Star Trek knowledge. So I'm wondering if this new limited series. Because they've also, now mind you, Marina Sirtis has also been on set too of Discovery at one point. So I'm wondering if it's going to be a TNG limited series reprisal, and we could possibly see some TNG DS9 Voyager characters all in this limited series. And if they did a 13 episode arc limited series covering the TNG era, or 15, 20 years, basically keeping with real time of the actors from their original characters, and they kind of picked up 20 years after Picard and Cisco and Janeway, I think we could end up with a really awesome series. And you could possibly see that take off and go further. I would love to see it. I know that if Patrick Stewart's involved, it's got to be good. If at least you think so, because that guy won't do something if he doesn't like it. So it would be nice to see regardless of what happens. And then the other thing is the animated series, whose plot details are being kept under wraps. I hope that they skip any of the generations we've seen so far, unless it's going to jump around. I hope that they skip the Enterprise era. I hope they really honestly skip everything that's not like between. I would like to see them go between the Undiscovered Country and the Next Generation. To be honest, like when the Enterprise B is floating out and the Excelsior's floating around, and then the Enterprise C ends up out there, later on and up to its destruction and the creation of the Enterprise D. I would love to see that timeline, but doing it in the way that they've done kind of Star Wars Rebels and Star Wars Clone Wars, kind of filling in that gap with an animated series. Because I think that's about the only route that you could play at this time and still have some of the actors reprise their roles who are elderly at this point. And I think that it could be pretty solid if they did it like the CG route of what they've done with Star Wars, because I think the Star Wars animated series have been like pretty spectacular. And so if they did it in that vein, I can see it going really well. But if you're a fan of the original animated series, which why would you be? They're doing a crossover comic with Transformers on IDW right now. It starts in September, and it's a 4-issue arc, and I'm really looking forward to that because I've followed Transformers like forever, but then when they started doing the G.I. Joe Transformer crossovers, I got all those for the longest time, and then they've done a bunch of other Marvel, well, not Marvel, but like Hasbro properties. Now, mind you, like Marvel used to have G.I. Joe and Transformers and Star Trek and like all these properties way back when, and then DC got half of them, like Star Trek, and you've seen G.I. Joe jump between like Devil's Due and some of these other ones that are Image and some other like that. So I don't know. I'm kind of looking forward to seeing what they do with it when it comes out. I know that it's following the original animated series and the original Transformers G1, but it should be really interesting to read. At least for the animation style that's in it, or being that it's not animated, the art style that's in it. So, anyways, that about wraps this up. I'm gonna call it a day, and until next time, get altered, get geeky with the Altered Geeks.